Al parecer, cada día los funcionarios de Trump se despiertan con una única misión: salir a buscar el siguiente rastrillo para pisar. Nadie lo hace con más entusiasmo que Pete Hegseth, un hombre tan plagado de escándalos, de errores, de metidas de pata, que lo único que ha logrado hasta el momento es humillar a Donald Trump cada vez que abre la boca. Una vez más lo ha hecho tras un nuevo informe desde el Pentágono que revela cómo Pete Hegseth no solo se fue por la libre, actuando, ¿no?, a espaldas de Trump, sino que expuso su deterioro mental de una forma tan clara que hizo entrar en pánico a toda la administración. Antes de que entremos de lleno, señores, a lo que acaba de hacer Pete Hegseth, quiero comenzar con una descripción bastante precisa de quién realmente maneja las cosas dentro de esta Casa Blanca. Jessica Tarlov lo ha dicho con claridad. Escuchemos.
Not in those quotes, certainly. And I think that the vast majority of Democrats that you meet on the street and who are in elected office would not be talking like that and wouldn't be setting Teslas on fire or anything. But Dana's right about if people came into Trump's office, the Oval, as they call it, and they said, I want to do a deal on Dreamers. But what you can't account for is the impact of Stephen Miller, who will not allow such a thing to happen, because we saw this. Donald Trump said, I've been hearing from, my friends who work in farming, who work in hotels, leisure, et cetera, and there are a lot of really good people that work for them. And Donald Trump would know that because he had undocumented people working for him in some of his hotels. And then Stephen Miller got involved and he said, actually, no, we can't have any exemptions for anyone. This is mass deportation no matter what. And a lot of these people, Black and brown Americans, on the immigration issue certainly supported Donald Trump, but his approval rating on those issues has been going down steadily since they've seen what this is. Quinnipiac, 41% approval, 57% disapproval, only 39% approval on deportations. And what they're hearing is that stories of how people are being picked up from things like immigration court, Home Depots. There was a story about a San Antonio area ICE detention center, a huge spike in 911 calls from people who have been detained there, reporting increased suicide attempts and sexual abuse. What is going on with this immigration policy is not what people showed up on November 5th for. I know there are some folks out there are pictures of those grannies that had those signs that says mass deportation now.
What about you bring up something as charged as sexual abuse?
Yeah.
Who is causing the sexual abuse? Is it the people running the detention center are raping the detainees?
You've never heard of that happening, or they're
abusing them? Because I want to be clear that that's what you're alluding to.
That's what the report
So people that are running the detainee center are sexually abusing.
I don't have video of what was happening. I just know that they are seeing an increased amount of 911 calls.
Ya hemos hablado algunas veces sobre el papel que tiene Stephen Miller. No solo porque tal vez sea la persona más moralmente repugnante dentro del movimiento MAGA, no solo por su voz irritante o porque sus trajes no le quedan. No, señores, hablamos de él porque es la prueba de que Trump ya no está al mando. Cuando un asesor con ese historial es quien toma las decisiones por encima del presidente, eso te dice que el supuesto líder ha perdido el control por completo. Y eso es lo que nos lleva a lo que hizo Pete Hegseth. Lo que hizo fue tan grave, señores, que los altos mandos en el Pentágono literalmente están en crisis. Y cuando vean lo que hizo, van a entender por qué esto confirma el deterioro cognitivo de Trump. Pete Hegseth ordenó pausar el envío de armas a Ucrania sin siquiera informar a la Casa Blanca. Son 5 fuentes dentro del Pentágono que confirmaron que nadie en el ala oeste sabía nada. La administración se enteró justamente cuando ya era demasiado tarde, ¿no? Y esto desató un caos absoluto, tratando de explicar al Congreso, ¿no?, y al gobierno ucraniano. Cuando le preguntaron a Trump esta semana, en una reunión del gabinete, si él había aprobado esa pausa, él respondió que no sabía. Literalmente, amigos, dijo, no lo sé. ¿Por qué no me lo dices tú? Hablamos de un presidente que no tiene ni la menor idea de quién detuvo el apoyo militar a Ucrania. Un presidente completamente fuera de control, o sin el control. Y esto no es la primera vez. Ya en febrero Pete Hegseth había hecho lo mismo, ¿no? Lo detuvo sin avisar y ahora repite el mismo patrón. Actúa sin consultar a nadie. ¿Dónde está el comandante en jefe? ¿Dónde está Trump? Vamos a ver el momento exacto en el cual Trump fue confrontado y no supo qué responder.
Ukraine, as you said last night. Last week, the Pentagon paused some shipments of weapons to Ukraine. Did you approve of that pause?
We want to put defensive weapons because Putin is not treating human beings right. He's killing too many people. So we're sending some defensive weapons to Ukraine, and I've approved that.
So who ordered the pause last week?
I don't know. What did you tell me?
I think that's a question for the
Go
Pentagon.
ahead. Yeah.
Esa respuesta de no lo sé es lo que ha hecho sonar todas las alarmas. Porque, ¿cómo es posible que el presidente de Estados Unidos no sepa quién interrumpió una operación crítica en una zona de guerra? Incluso, The Washington Post informó que Trump se molestó en privado porque el Pentágono anunció la pausa sin consultárselo. Y aún así, en público, intenta actuar confundido, ¿no? Perdido, sin saber qué pasa en su propia administración. Esto no solo es un tema de negligencia, amigos, es una evidencia clara que tenemos un deterioro mental muy pero muy grave. No se detiene ahí porque en la misma semana Donald Trump también sugirió un programa para permitir que agricultores patrocinen trabajadores indocumentados. Algo que, como bien sabemos, su propio gabinete contradijo públicamente apenas unas horas después. El secretario de Agricultura, Brock Rollins, dijo que no habrá amnistía para nadie y que las deportaciones masivas continuarían. Entonces, ¿Donald Trump estaba mintiendo o simplemente ya no sabe lo que dice? Eso no es nuevo. En abril, recordemos, dijo que mucha gente venía del Congo y remató. No sé qué es eso, pero vienen del Congo. Y también dijo que no sabía que su administración estaba utilizando la ley de enemigos extranjeros para deportar a pandilleros, a pesar de que él es el que firmó la orden ejecutiva. Lo más escandaloso ocurrió en la misma reunión del gabinete, donde le tuvo que preguntar en voz baja a Pete Hegseth qué debía decir.
The Ukrainians have asked the International Court to go after Russia for using toxic chemicals in the site. Germany and Germany and the Netherlands have had intelligence saying that. What does U.S. intelligence believe, and what do you believe about the use of chemical weapons? And would you agree that that's a case for the court in The Hague?
What else, John? Maybe.
Donald Trump, un hombre con más poder presidencial del que ha tenido nadie en la historia moderna. Ni siquiera sabe lo que ocurre a su alrededor. Es un títere, señores, un títere en manos de otros. Lo digo sin pizca de compasión. Como algunos dicen, ¿no?, en redes sociales, el cerebro de Putin, porque literalmente eso es lo que parece. Un hombre fácil de manipular. El hombre que decide bombardear países basado en lo que ve en Fox News por las mañanas. Lo último que ve es lo primero que dice. Así de simple. Y si eso no les asusta, quizás les asuste lo que dijo Lawrence O'Donnell.
Well, the possibility of a relentlessly stupid person becoming president of the United States has been underexplored by screenwriters. And then Donald Trump came along and went far beyond what Hollywood could ever imagine in the presidency. Prior to Donald Trump, the challenge for screenwriters and fiction writers would have been, first of all, how could a profoundly stupid person be elected president of the United States? And then, how could a profoundly stupid person get through a day on the job as president? The fictional president, played brilliantly by Martin Sheen on NBC's Emmy-winning series The West Wing, was a wise and carefully thoughtful president for whom I wrote several episode scripts over 7 years of that series. And if I were writing the character of a stupid president in a script, I would simply have had the stupid president completely rely on a smart White House staff and a smart cabinet and just hide behind those people. And absolutely, and I mean absolutely, never talk to the press, because a stupid president's stupidity would be immediately exposed by the White House press corps. And on that point, I would have been very wrong, because it turns out the stupidest presidency in American history has the stupidest White House press corps in American history, as far as we can tell. And the press corps have become accessories, as they proved again today. No one could have imagined that if we get the stupidest president in history, we would also get the stupidest White House press corps collectively in history. But that is where we are. Some individual members of the White House press corps, and I want to stress this, remain excellent at their jobs. But they frequently don't get to ask Donald Trump a question in the elbow-to-elbow question competition that occurs when Donald Trump invites them into the Oval Office, or, as it was today, in the cabinet room. And it was the first time the Trump cabinet has met since Elon Musk left his position that wasn't actually a cabinet position, but that granted him a seat at the table in Trump cabinet meetings, absurdly, which those Trump cabinet meetings have consistently been the most ridiculous cabinet meetings in the history of the cabinet. Today, Donald Trump's accessories were allowed into the room to ask some questions. The White House press corps have become accessories in more than one sense. There is the criminal law concept of accessories, and there is the fashion notion of accessories. Donald Trump turns White House reporters into both versions of that word, accessories. He treats them like handbags or cufflinks, ornaments that he flashes around to pretend, and only pretend, that he is openly communicating about what he is doing in his workday, when he never really answers questions. And so that is never true. And Donald Trump uses the press corps as accessories before and after the fact of his lies. Donald Trump uses White House reporters to evade questions asked by other White House reporters. He plays them for clowns, and they have no idea how to resist it. And I have to admit, if I were in the White House press corps, I'm not sure I would figure out how to resist it, except to maybe yell out some question about Donald Trump lying about something, and then I wouldn't be in the White House press corps anymore. I would be shown out the door, and that would be the end of that. There was a moment in Donald Trump's playing with the press today that shows everything all at once. It shows Donald Trump's colossal stupidity in an exchange that he thinks shows how clever he is. Imagine how stupid you have to be as President of the United States to think that when asked a question about something important that you're supposed to know, your answer is, I don't know, why don't you tell me? There have been previous presidents who have been asked questions that they didn't know the answer to, which they should have known the answer to, and not one of them said, I don't know, why don't you tell me? Because none of them are as stupid as Donald Trump. Only Donald Trump could do that. And only Donald Trump has been able to beat down and humiliate White House reporters to the point where they take that for an answer meekly and shut up, which is exactly what happened today. When that White House reporter took that answer meekly, tried to mumble a follow-up, another White House reporter beside her immediately jumped in, performing his role as an accessory after the fact of Donald Trump's stupidity, to offer Donald Trump a complete change of subject, a completely different question, to run away from the question to which his idiotic answer was, I don't know, why don't you tell me? And the reporter who he asked, why don't you tell me, began to follow up. But the other White House reporter came in to rescue Donald Trump. And all of that happens in one flash in the cabinet room today. And not a single White House reporter is outraged. Not a single White House reporter raised a voice. And the White House reporter who got Donald Trump to say, I don't know, why don't you tell me, is the very same White House reporter who was always congratulated for being very aggressive, and that's the term they're always proud of, very aggressive with President Joe Biden. She never would have allowed Joe Biden to say to her, why don't you tell me, without an aggressive and very loud response to that, a raised voice, aggressive response to that. But it's Donald Trump now. And so the White House press corps has changed its own rules of behavior in order to continue to be allowed in the Trump White House They're not allowed to do their jobs in the Trump White House, but they are allowed to be there, which apparently is all that matters to most of them, who have exhibited no shame whatsoever in the diminution of their status, their reduction to accessories by Donald Trump. Here is that moment when everything all at once happened today.
Putin is not treating human beings right. He's killing too many people. So we're sending some defensive weapons to Ukraine, and I've approved that.
So who ordered the pause last week?
I don't know. Why don't you tell me?
I think that's a question for the
Go ahead.
Mr. President, on immigration, the Secretary of the Agriculture did say this morning that undocumented workers would not be covered by any amnesty of who are working on farms.
And we were off to immigration. Donald Trump obviously thought he was being very clever with the "why don't you tell me" wise guy.
Señores, es la administración más peligrosa en la historia de los Estados Unidos. Y es algo que no podemos callarnos. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarme hasta el final de este video. Recuerda, como siempre, darle like, compártelo con tus amigos y suscríbete a nuestro canal Políticamente en Desacuerdo. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.